Just over with. What a week. What a week I've had. I got to tell you guys, the server's been down. I was down yesterday trying to move to a bigger server for more of the workload on the site. So hopefully you'll notice the site's moving a little bit faster. I know some of the things got lost yesterday. Like, for instance, some of the blog posts got lost. I know some things in the forum got lost in transition. So anything posted late the 23rd is probably not there. So I didn't delete your forum posts. If you guys are wondering, I know some people are emailing me, asking me if I'm going in and deleting their forum post. I'm not deleting it. It was a transition from moving it to another server. So hopefully with the upgrade, the site will run a little bit faster and a little bit smoother for you guys. Remember, if you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at SasquatchChron. Send me a message. I try to respond to as many as I can. Feel free to shoot me a message on there as well as shoot me an email. If you've had an encounter, though, please email me. It's an easier way for me to contact you. And when you send me your email, please include your phone number. It just cuts down on the back and forth of me trying to find a way to contact you. Welcome to the show, guys. I really appreciate you guys being here tonight. On Sunday, I got a couple guests lined up, a couple exciting things. I know one of my guests on Sunday opened the curtains and went to open her door, and there was a Sasquatch standing there reaching down to open the door, and they got face to face, and she screamed, the Sasquatch screamed, and then they parted ways. That'll be one of my guests. I'll also be retelling the William Rose story. Here's a small clip from it. I had just come out of a patch of low brush into this clearing when I saw what I thought was a grizzly bear. I had shot a grizzly bear in the exact same spot a year prior. This one was only about 75 yards away, but I didn't want to shoot it because I had no way of getting it out. So I sat down on a small rock and watched, with my rifle in my hands. I could see part of the animal's head and top of one shoulder. A moment later, it raised up and stepped out into the opening. Then I saw this was no bear. So look for that on Sunday night. Should be a fun night. Well, let's get into it tonight. Imagine buying a vacation cabin, a peaceful place for you and your family to go hang out, until you start noticing strange creatures around your property. They scream, they make monkey noises, they slap the home, and you're not really sure what to do. That's what happened to my first guest tonight. I want to get into it tonight. Andrew, thanks for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate you being here tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know when you and I talked the other day, you had a lot of interesting things going on and around your cabin. For the audience, if you would kind of start from the beginning. Tell us about the cabin. Tell us about the first time you experienced anything, and then just kind of walk us into the ongoing activity that you've experienced going on there.
Sure. Just a little background on the cabin. It's just a vacation lake house we have, several hours from where we live. It's on a big lake here in Alabama. The house is directly facing the lake. The lakefront is probably 15 yards from the front of the house. Surrounded by woods, pretty much on all three sides except for the lakefront. Right behind the house, there's kind of a big hardwood bottom and kind of goes up on a ridge, and then a bunch of pine thickets behind that and all around. It's a very, very secluded area. There are houses around, but the one next door is actually completely vacant. And the other houses on the road, people just come and go during the summer. There's not a lot of activity in the winter, or even in the summer during the week for that matter.
When did the activity start? Was it when you very first moved in?
No, we've been at this location for 12 years in this house. We actually had another house on the street 3 doors down prior to that. So we've been, on this road at this location for probably around 20 years, and never experienced anything until October of last year. I believe it was October 21st or 22nd. It was a Sunday. My wife and my son They were, I believe, at the beach or Disney World or something like that. And that Monday was a holiday. So I had just, taken our family dog, and I'd gone down there just to, go try to fish, just relax, just kind of get away from things. The first night I was there, nothing happened. It was just very calm and peaceful. It was a very nice weekend. Not a cloud in the sky, no wind, no sound, no anything. It was wonderful. But the second night I had gone fishing, just on our pier in front of the house, for a couple of hours until about 9:30 p.m. Nothing of note. Then I was back up on our front porch, and we have a big, long front porch on the front of the house with a bunch of rocking chairs, patio furniture over on the side. And so I was just sitting there playing music, not loud, but kind of quiet, and just relaxing, sitting there with this dog. And it was about 10:30, and so I went to go take her for a walk before I wrap things up for the night. So I put her on the leash, walked out of the front of the house on the lake side, and then walked around the side of the house through the grass. We have a big gravel driveway in the back, and I was kind of parallel with, or perpendicular to the back door, just in the gravel driveway, and it's surrounded by woods, just a few yards away from the driveway, so it's very wooded. And we were walking back there, and then I heard just what sounded like a deer blow. I've been hunting all my life, and I've heard that sound 1,000 times. So I heard a deer blow, and then I heard something, run off over towards our vacant neighbor's house. So, didn't think too much of it. But then immediately after, I heard this distinct but light wood knock, just wood on wood. I kind of laughed. I'd watched, Finding Bigfoot and all that stuff, and it was pretty comical to me. So I jokingly just whooped over in that direction. And, immediately following, I heard a massive wood knock from behind me in the woods on the other side of the driveway. So, that freaked me out a little bit, and I didn't do anything else. I just immediately, grabbed the dog, and then we just kind of retraced our steps around the side of the house and just went back up to the porch. And so we sat there just maybe for a minute or two. And then over, I guess to my right, I was facing the lake. We have a utility shed where we keep lawnmowers and stuff like that. And there's a little small patch of woods behind it. And I heard something just unload on the shed. I mean, it sounded like, Ray Lewis tackling the back of it, or, just something just nailing the back of it. And so I just shot out of my chair. I mean, I was totally freaked out. And I grabbed my pistol and my flashlight that I had on the table out there with me, and walked over towards the shed. I was shining the light, on either side, all around it, on top. Walked about halfway over to it. Didn't see anything, just due to the intensity of the sound. I wasn't about to go behind there and see what it was. Just trying to, see if I could get a glimpse of anything, which I've not. So after that, was pretty darn freaked out. But I walked back into the porch, sat down again, and then, just a few seconds or a minute later, I heard a massive wood knock on the other side of the house, in the woods. And it was close. It was loud. The volume was just out of control. So at that point, I was just completely unnerved. I got the dog and all my stuff from outside. I went back in, locked up, shut down everything, turned the lights off, and then went and got in bed in the back bedroom on the back side of the house. And just, I did have some, guns with me, and I had them, sitting there right next to me, and I was just, laying down, just kind of, TV off, just, ears open, wide-eyed, just, waiting to see if I could, hear anything else happen. I laid there for a while. I can't really remember how long it was. So I kind of partially dozed off, but then I was awoken to a voice I heard outside the window, which was really strange. I kind of thought I was hearing things at first, but it just continued. And I heard it sounded like I guess an Indian woman is the best way I could describe it. It was a pleasant tone. It was, it didn't sound threatening, but I distinctly heard what it said. It said, Mombath, like Mombath, Mombath. And it said it 3 or 4 times. And so after that, I was just like, what in the hell is going on here? Just totally out of bounds, just totally out of sorts. So not long after that, I heard something slapped right behind the bedroom on the outside of the house, right behind me. I mean, just a hell of a slap, hell of a force, not just a little tap on the house, to shook the walls and everything. So, I'm still sitting there, and I have my gun laying across my lap at this point. And not just a few minutes later, I hear a massive whack on the other side of the house. I don't know what's going on or what to do really, but it just kept on. A few minutes later, I heard something pushing the wood carrier on our back, kind of our little back stoop where you walk in. It's kind of like a little wooded patio. It's not very big, and we have 2 wood carriers on either side of the entranceway. And I heard, it sounded like something just, pushing that across the wood, a very distinct sound. So that freaked the hell out of me. And then just a few minutes after that, I heard from the front of the house something either pushing the wrought iron patio furniture across the wooden deck, which makes a very distinct sound. Or we have a propane gas grill out there that, if you push it across the deck, it's going to make the same sound. So at that point, I'd had it. I thought whatever it was going to, next it was going to come in the house. The house is just a vacation home. It's just, huge, big windows. If something wanted to get in, it would have no problem doing so. So I decided, to hell with this. I'm going to go, confront whatever this is. So I grabbed my AR-15 and my flashlight, and I just, charged out of the back bedroom towards the front of the house, just shining light through the window, rifle up, shined all around. I saw nothing. I saw zero. Immediately ran to the back of the house. I did the same thing out the back door. I did not go outside just because,
yeah, you're
I was scared what would happen.
Scared as hell, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I didn't see anything. So after that, there was a little hallway in the back by the bedroom, and I put my back against the wall, the outside wall, just so I could see a little bit of light that was coming in the back door. It's just one big window. And I just, kind of watching the shadows to see if anything, popped into it. So then I could, swing around and, at least get eyes on it or, anything just to figure out what was going on. I did that for a while and nothing happened. So eventually I went and got back in bed. And I believe about like 4 a.m., some rain came in. And that kind of, muffled any sound from outside. And, I finally was able to go to sleep. Not for long though. I woke up, the crack of dawn, sunrise, and, went outside. I walked around the house. I was looking for tracks or, sticks or logs or, anything that had been, thrown at the house or, just any sign of the activity that I experienced the night before. But the yard around the house is like we have a grass yard that's been sodded, but it's a sandy bottom, hard sandy bottom kind of all around. So, I wasn't able to see anything at the time. I was just, completely freaked out. It was an intense experience to say the least.
I can imagine. I would be scared as hell. I would imagine most people in that position would be scared as hell. What's interesting is when all of this is going on, what's going through your mind? Are you thinking this? A couple things. Are you thinking what the hell's going on? Or are you thinking, wow, this just became a really bad episode of Finding Bigfoot. They actually did come in and surround my home.
Yeah. When I heard that first initial wood knock, I laughed. And that's why, I jokingly whooped at it. But immediately I just heard, Sammy Sosa in the woods with a telephone pole, whack a tree behind me. So at that point, I was like,
Sammy Sosa.
this is getting real.
Got real quick.
Yeah, and just continued. So, I knew from the get-go that it wasn't humans, just because when I'm down there alone, it's the middle of nowhere. It's a dead-end street. Nobody has any business going back there unless they live there. So, always took a pistol with me at least. If I'm alone like that and walking the dog, especially around the woods at night, there are coyotes, bobcats, foxes, all kinds of stuff around. So, I had my AR-15, on a sling over my shoulder, when the initial encounter started. So, clear as day, you could see that I was, armed and, mid-business. It was very apparent from the get-go that it was, something out of the ordinary.
Let me ask you, has there been any recent logging in the area?
Yeah, there actually has. There's been a bunch. Not far down the road from our house, maybe half a mile. There's been a bunch of logging right there. All in the area. There's just been, actually extensive logging. Some real close to the house, and then some, within a mile or two. And I say some, it's just huge swaths of land that they have just completely clear cut. They've just been, totally wiped out. Every time I go down there now, I pass a logging truck, full of timber. So it's just been constant for the past, I guess a year and a half.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just talked to another witness here in Washington State that's kind of experiencing the same thing you are, just not at the level you are. And I asked him the same question: has there been logging recently in the area? And he said, yeah, absolutely. All around my place, there's been logging except for on his property. And so I think that's fascinating because it's almost like they're getting squeezed into the area.
Right.
Before we jump into the next situation that happened, because I know there's been several, when you heard that voice say that phrase, did it remind you of a person? Did it remind you of an animal trying to sound like a person? What was going through your mind when you heard that?
It sounded like a soft female voice. It wasn't threatening. It was clear as day. It sounded like the best thing I could relate it to would be like an Indian woman, Native American, I guess. Just calmly speaking, but it was the same phrase that I heard it at least 3 times. It could have been 4. It's kind of what I was awoken to. The first time I heard it, I just kind of shook my head. I'm hearing things, but I heard it, again and again. So I didn't know what to make of that. That freaked me out. The wood knocks and all that stuff. When all that started happening, I was like, oh man, like this, this could be real.
You're not crazy. I've heard other witnesses say that. When was the next incident at the property?
Let's see. I didn't go back down for a while. I was just, pretty traumatized about everything that had happened. And it took me, quite a while just to, wrap my head around it and accept what had happened and, figure out what to do. I had gone back down with a friend not too long after, but luckily we went down just for one night and nothing happened because we went down, armed to the teeth, trying to stir the pot and, looking back, thankfully, nothing happened. But the next actual, activity was, I believe I was down with my wife. We had our dog, and actually my folks were there too. They're older. They're probably close to 70. And I was in the same bedroom I was when the initial encounter happened. But we had just, been there, just, hanging out, watching TV. We'd gotten in bed, and my wife had fallen asleep, and so the dog. And it was about 12:30, and I just turned off the TV, and we have this big window in the bedroom. It's huge. It's got big plantation shutters that were closed, and it's about the window is 6 feet tall. Just inside from the bottom to top, and it's about 2 feet off the ground from the outside of the house. So I was just sitting there in bed. We have floodlights on all 4 corners of the house. It illuminates the whole yard area. driveway. Two of the floodlights were actually out at that time, facing inwards, towards where, this window is, but there still was, plenty of light out there that, spilled through the little cracks, in the shutters. But I was just laying there, and all of a sudden, I saw from the top right of the window, this figure just came, and from the top right, it would, slide over and then blot out the whole window. And then it would just snap back to the other side. So I saw it once. It's like, what the heck is that? Second time, same thing. From the top right, it started and then slid across the window, engulfed the whole thing, totally blacked it out, and then would snap back. That happened 5 times, just in a matter of a minute. But after the 5th time, when it started to come back across, I grabbed my LED flashlight and just, blasted the window. And then, that immediately stopped the activity. But I did get out of bed and go over to the window and just, kind of put my ear up to it. And I could hear, all kinds of like chatter, sound like rock clacks, not like the wood knocks I heard before, but something just like rapidly, tapping on the wood, just like sounded excited or scared or whatever. And I did go outside after that to go see if I could see anything, but I didn't see anything in the area. I did hear a wood knock from this little kind of isthmus island right behind our house. But other than that, I didn't see anything that night.
So they were obviously coming up to the home. Did you tell your wife what happened? Were you like, hey, listen, sweetie, last time I was out here, this happened, and I got to tell you what's going on out here before we head out?
Yeah, I told her after the initial encounter, I was actually supposed to stay down there for another day. I had some business in the area that I was supposed to tend to, and I totally just, blew it off just because I was, too shooken up to, to do anything for that matter. So when I got home the day after the initial encounter, I mean, she knew something was wrong. So what is wrong with you? You're just bug-eyed. You're scared. The 6 years we've been together, she said she's never seen me rattled or scared. And so, I flat out told her everything that had happened. And, she believed me. But, it's just hard to wrap your head around unless you actually, experience it yourself.
Unless you're in the moment, it's hard for someone else to, well, even when you're in the moment, it's hard to wrap your head around, let alone trying to explain it to someone else. How high up is that window we're talking about where it blacked it out?
It is, from the outside, I measured, it is 2 feet from the ground, just to the base of it on the outside. And then the window is another 6 feet tall. I'm actually 6'1", and so I went and stood up next to it on the inside, and it was as tall as me or taller. So the figure is started from the top right of the window. So whatever it was had to be huge, and I'm kind of glad I didn't get a look at that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So that's, we're talking something that has to be at least 8 feet up to black a window out, minimum of 8 feet up to black a window out.
Right.
Because, a grown man probably wouldn't have blackened a window out like that.
No, it's a wide window too. I mean, it's real wide. I mean, I'm a big old boy. I'm probably weigh 215, 220, pretty wide. And, that window is, almost 2 of me, side by side. So it's not only is it tall, it's just a big, big window.
And so what happened next? When was the next incident?
I believe it was the next night, actually. Still the same people there. Just my folks were there. My wife and I and our dog. We'd been watching football that afternoon, and we were on the front porch, kind of over on the side of the house where that shed is that got whacked. And we had some wrought iron patio furniture. And we were just sitting out there, just playing some music, just relaxing. I heard a couple of owls crank up. I mean, just constant hooting, and it was extremely loud. One was coming from off in the distance over to one side of the house, and then one was kind of line of sight into the woods, from where we were on the other side of the house. I mean, hoo, 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 this deep, loud, and then the owl that was further away, came and joined up with the one that was kind of line of sight to us, and they were just both right there together, just, going nuts. I knew right off the bat that it was, sounded, off, and, it was totally out of the ordinary. So we grabbed our stuff and we walked through the yard, got across the driveway over to the wood line, back where they were. And, they just never stopped, just, this deep, loud, just, ooh, ooh, ooh. And so I had a green light flashlight with a strobe, so I picked that up. And first I shined it, and then I hit the strobe and strobed them, and then they went ballistic after that. They just started making these deep guttural monkey noises, just, like, the both of them were. And, that freaked me out. And I know it scared the hell out of my wife. So, they were just going nuts. And so we were kind of scared. And actually, I had a little handheld flare, and so I popped that, just to light up the area and just kind of waved it back and forth. And, we were screaming at them, just get the hell out of there, leave us alone. They eventually kind of moved around us out to this little island area kind of next to our house. There's like a little causeway going out to it, and there's an island, and some big pines, and there's actually a house out there. And they moved out there, and I could see them. They were kind of, tucked behind these bushes. And so we moved out to the lake bed where we could get a good look at them. So they were kind of on stage because the lake at this time is down, and we're looking at them up on this little island. And then, there's more lake behind them, and lights way off in the distance. So they're kind of, backlit. So I had my 300 blackout. I have a 9-power scope on it, and we were big spotlights over there too. And so I could see 2 sets of red glowing eyes. I could make out the shape of a head and shoulders, and they were just sitting there, and they were they weren't up in trees or anything. They were just behind these low bushes. Just they would not move. Just kept doing their hooting, and so I kept trying to push closer towards them, and I got a good ways out there, but I just didn't feel comfortable going any further without like some backup, some armed guards or something like that. So I finally just around the lake bed, just trying to break things up. But all they did is they stopped their hooting for a while. But then, a few minutes later, they cranked back up. And, so at that point, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to, alleviate the situation. So, I think eventually my folks woke up, and we went back up to the house, and, I was freaked out, and so was my wife. And, I'd not fired my gun at these things, but I'd fired it, just into the lake bed. So, I didn't feel comfortable staying there that night. So we literally, packed up our stuff in the middle of the night and drove home. Just because what I dealt with before, I was worried about what might happen throughout the night. So we picked up and left.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I think I probably would have too. What's interesting is that you use a green laser, green LED light, and it had the strobe on it. Bob Garrett's told me to carry one of those. I've talked to military people that said carry one of those. Anything outside of the red spectrum, carry something, a laser or some sort of light outside of the red spectrum. And when you hit them with it, it blinds them. It takes their night vision away from them temporarily and drives them nuts. What's interesting in your encounter is you heard what sounded like a bunch of apes.
Oh, yeah. It was, loud and clear. It was just, literally just, And it was the both of them. I mean, just when I hit them with that, they just went ballistic. They went crazy.
What did your wife say at that point?
Oh, she was scared. She wanted to she wanted to run back to the house, but I just told her to stand behind me, that it was fine. I had my rifle with me and my pistol. Ever since the initial encounter, I had my weapons in, and ever since, I'm not taking any chances. So I just told her to stay there, that if something happened, we could, take care of it. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
But she was very rattled. Yeah, she was scared.
So you guys leave for the night. When's the next time you return to the cabin?
It was, let's see, maybe a month or so later. We were down there. I believe it was at least 4 of us, I think. There wasn't, no activity of note. I did hear a whoop, not right close to the house, but probably several ridges behind the house, just, up in the woods. I heard a distinct whoop. And then I heard, coyotes just, erupt, going nuts. That was interesting, but nothing of note that night. And then I don't know if it was that same weekend or not, but at another point in time, I was walking from the front porch around the side of the house, like I'd done before. And that shed, when I walked right by it, when I got to the other side, I heard something just explode behind the shed. I mean, it sounded like, something just erupting in the woods behind it. But I never heard anything run off, like a deer. To spook a deer, you'll hear it, crash off through the woods. I just heard this massive blow up behind there, but I never heard anything leave. So it was,
when you say blow up, do you mean like the brush exploding? I mean, what do you mean when you say blow up for the audience?
Yeah, the brush exploding. I mean, the brush and trees around it. Nothing was being, there's nothing shaking trees or anything like that, but it's just like all the brush and bushes and foliage. I mean, it sounds like something just, exploded back inside of there. And the funny thing is, too, that shed, it faces the side of our house, and we have, these big, huge windows, on the side of the house in the front. And so after that, I went and stood behind that shed and just kind of peered around the side. And, you got a full view of, front porch. You can see inside the house. You can see us eating dinner. You can see the TV. So I don't know if that's just a spot that, they like to park and kind of watch us.
That's really interesting. You're probably right. They probably are sitting there watching you guys. When was the next incident?
We went back, I guess, not too long after, and nothing much had happened that weekend. But it was, I don't know if it was 12 or 1, somewhere in that time, a.m. And I think I was in the bathroom, and my wife was just, watching TV, just, winding down for the night. And she said she heard a big thud, not something hitting the house, but from outside, which, would have to be substantial because, the house is pretty well built, well insulated. And, I told her, no, I've been inside the whole time. It wasn't me. I'll go check it out. So I grabbed my rifle. Not because I wanted to shoot anything. I was just using it for, the scope, and I have a light on there. Just kind of as a viewing tool. So I walked out the back door, onto the back stoop, and we have a beefed up golf cart, big old mud tires on it, and, big rack on the back. So there's a wood line, on the other side of the house. It's kind of about, I guess, 10 something feet tall. So as opposed to just, running out there and, trying to run through the cover and go get a look at it, I just stood, walked out and stood on the back of the golf cart, just to give me, an extra 3 or 4 feet so I could see over the woods. And so, I clicked the light on, pulled the scope up to my eye, and immediately I saw some eye shine, from over at the vacant neighbor's house. Initially, it was just one eye, but then, either it was behind something or it turned, and I saw these, 2 big glowing eyes, and immediately I knew that, it wasn't a deer. I've seen 1,000 deer in their eye shine. It was big. Just the, how they were set apart. I immediately knew that it was, something different. And so I did. I was trying to motion my wife to, to come out and, get the binoculars so, she could see it as well. But in that time, the thing had moved, I guess, towards me, and then kind of took a turn to the right, just heading back, into the dense woods. But actually, I caught a glimpse of it as it was passing these oak trees in my scope, and I had the green light flashlight on the rifle, and also I had an LED flashlight in my hand that I was holding just next to the grip. But I saw, this creature, pass in front of this tree. It was gray, grayish white, short hair, maybe a few inches. It had some black splotches on it. I don't know if that was an ear or what, but it just looked nasty. But it didn't look monstrous or, like the Patterson-Gimlin film or anything. It, looked kind of more wiry. I only got a side profile of it. I just saw, the side of the head and the shoulders. But, I didn't get a full frontal of it, at that close range. But so it just, passed in front of the tree, and right when it did, my jaw just dropped because, I caught glimpses of these things and, seeing outlines and eyes and stuff like that, but never, the full Monty like that up close. So, my jaw just dropped, and, I guess it kept going on. And I was trying to get my wife to come out to, try to come see it too. But by that point, it was gone. But the funny thing was, the whole time when it was moving, it made no noise whatsoever. I never heard any, twigs breaking or leaves crunching or anything like that. It just moved along silently.
When you saw this thing, was the profile more humanish? I know some people might be wondering, gosh, this thing's terrorizing you, coming up, slapping the house, and we can go into more of them slapping the house because this wasn't the first rodeo of them doing it. This is something that's been ongoing. What made you not want to pull the trigger?
Gosh. Well, my folks were there that weekend, and they're probably been pretty hacked off. I was out there just, slinging off rounds. But I didn't pull the trigger. I really wasn't aiming to it in this situation, but at the same time, if it would have been aggressive towards me, I absolutely would have. But it did look very humanish. It wasn't, massive, bulky monster. It was more wiry. The head had more of a human shape to it. And just kind of that aspect of it as well. I don't think that's the sole reason, but that definitely played into it.
No, and I understand that. And, I hope you're not offended by the question. I think some people would have pulled the trigger. I think you did the right thing not pulling the trigger in that particular position, especially being at your house. I always tell people, God, don't, if you pull the trigger when you're at your home, you're going to pay a price for it. You've heard too many story after story after story of them coming back for revenge. Right.
And that's what I had the mindset after my initial encounter. I was like, screw these things. I'm going to go lay waste to them. But after just some more, experience and just, listen to your show and reading more into it, I realized how dangerous that could be. It's one thing if you're out in the woods, not your property, or maybe it is your property, but, not where you live. If you encounter one, shoot it, no problem. But, if it's where you live and, you get your family to think about, kids, nieces, nephews, all that stuff. That's the only reason I related the initial encounter to my father a few days later after it happened, is just because of, safety concern. If these things are, in number and, constantly harassing the house, I made sure that he and everybody in my family knew about it, just because, I've no doubt that, one of these things could tear you limb from limb if it wanted to.
What did your dad say?
He believed me. He knows that I'm serious, and I don't joke around with him, and he's not a jokester either. he'd believe me, but I mean, he did believe me, but at the same time, he had a hard time wrapping his head around it. He was trying to, look at any alternative explanation, he could. He he was saying that it was it was beavers whacking on the house and the shed and doing all the wood knocking, and he had a couple of other theories, and I was just like, eventually, listen to yourself. Like, you tell me there's a rabid pack of beavers and, coyotes and bears and, pigs all at once, tearing our house apart, he had theory after theory after theory. And, what the conclusions he came to sounded crazier than the alternative. So, he's finally started to accept it, just because I guess he's had some experience of his own recently, so he's finally somewhat come to terms with it.
Yeah, it's interesting how people react to this sort of thing. And I want to get into your dad's theories. It's kind of like the story I was telling you about when we were on the phone, how I talked to this old 69-year-old lady out in Texas, and she kept saying that these 3 black guys keep throwing rocks at her home. They're always in hoodies. They're jet black, and they just torment her night after night after night. And I asked her, well, how long has this been going on? And she'll step out of the porch and pop off shots. I mean, this is a tough old woman. And I said, how long has this been going on? She said, about 6-7 months. And I said, so you think there's 3 black guys behind your home in the middle of nowhere that just keep messing with your, or actually I take that back. She said 3 black guys that speak Russian. And I said, Russian? And she said, yeah, it's this weird language. They just kind of chatter back and forth. And so sometimes I think it's easier for people to try to make sense of it rather than accept what's really going on. But what happened with your dad?
Well, I mean, I guess our story's not over. It's, this activity's still ongoing. I'm actually heading down there on Friday. But it was a couple of weeks ago. He was there alone with my mother, and they got woken up to the house being slapped by something, and I think that freaked him out. And of course, he told me that he went outside to go check it out, but he didn't see anything. I told him, please don't do that. That's probably what they want, is for you to come outside. And he doesn't get around too well. He's not very fleet of foot, so I told him, if something happens, just to, obviously hope you have a gun with you, but, set off the car alarm, something like that. Don't go out there and mess around in the middle of the night. He's come around. He doesn't like to talk about it too much, but at the same time, he constantly asks me whenever I've been down there, what's going on, anything new. He's
into it now.
He's, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know I had Brenda Harris on the show, and I respect Brenda very much, and I don't want to sound like I'm being disrespectful towards her, but I know she talked about the firecracker thing, throwing firecrackers out, and I kind of cringed a little bit when she said that, because I guess I want to make sure something like that is going to make them back off before I tell someone to do that, and not piss them off,
Right.
off, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Has there been any other incidences out there? I know you're heading out there this weekend.
I was there with my sister not too long ago, and it was late afternoon. We had just gotten down there, and she wanted to go for a long walk, just on the road. But I mean, the road's flanked by woods on either side, and no traffic. So I just told her to stay close to the house, not to go too far. But after a while, she was still gone. So I walked down the road, kind of up this hill, this ridge, and kind of waited there for her. And I'd text her on her phone, and she said that she was a little further on down, but heading back. So I told her I'd wait till she got into sight. Then I would turn around and head back as well, just make sure that she was okay. And so when she was on her way back, and it texted me to go on, and she was about to pop around the corner, I turned around and started to walk back down the ridge, back towards the house. But I mean, after I'd taken only a few steps, I heard something over in the woods that was walking alongside me, matching me step for step. It was clear as day. It wasn't a deer. I've deer make a distinct sound walking through the woods. Just heavy steps. I mean, just crunch, crunch. Whatever it was, didn't mind that it was being heard. And so just to kind of see what was going on, I would stop just to see if it stopped. And sure enough, when I stopped, it would stop. And then, I would start, it would start. And so we did this for, I guess, several hundred yards down the road. But at one point, the pine thicket kind of opens up into a little hardwood bottom. So it's like less dense, more sparse, not as much cover. So right when I hit the little hardwood bottom is when it stopped following me. And once it, the cover was gone, it kind of tapered off, and then I was able to go back to the house. But that was, that was interesting. I didn't see anything, but it was, something that's never happened before. We've also heard our dog noises being mimicked. Our dog makes these little kind of whimper. We call them beeps. Whenever she wants to go outside or she wants some food, anything like that. And we actually heard that from the front porch not too long ago, coming from the woods. And the dog was in a bed at our feet asleep right in front of us. So that was, both of our jaws dropped when we heard that. My wife and I really didn't freak us out too bad just because, so much has gone on. Something like that doesn't really rattle us. We've also heard some mechanical noises from the woods. Honestly, sounds like R2-D2 or BB-8 from Star Wars. Just have these loud, noises like that, clear as a bell, clear as day. I say mechanical noises, they're mechanical-like. It definitely sounds like, something is making them, something. We've also heard the neighbor's house that's vacant. They have a screened-in front porch, and we've heard that screen door late at night, being opened and closed. I've heard that a couple of times. As far as encounters too, there's a ton of stick structures and snapped trees, knocked down pines, oaks, all kinds of stuff like that, just all over the place around the house and in the woods behind it that weren't there a year ago. It's kind of the landscape around there has just totally changed in the past year. I guess prior to this activity happening and on through it, and lots of stuff that I've seen deadfall and storm damage and all of that for years and years and years. But definitely some different stuff out there in the woods these days.
It's really interesting you mentioned the R2-D2 sound. There was, I'm trying to remember what show it was. I had a witness who had activity around his property, and what he would tell me was it sounded like forklifts. The noise, the backup noise of a forklift. And I was like, oh, that's strange. I was like, really? You're hearing a forklift?
Right.
He's like, yeah, there's about 7 miles away, there's a warehouse. And if you go to that warehouse, there's like 8 forklifts running 24/7. When you hit that backup, that beep, 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 beep. And he said from the forest, he heard right outside of his home, almost like there was a forklift 50 feet away making this noise of them, like a forklift backing up. And it's strange. They do this mimic thing, and I've heard it over and over and over again. Like your dog whimpering. That's very common. I've heard that many times. I had a witness on one time, and he said he heard his dog whimpering, and it sounded like it was in pain, and it was down in this ravine right next to his home. So he was like, oh, I got to go get my dog. He goes down there. His dog's not down there, and he heard them circling him in the forest. And he was like, I'm out of here. So he gets up, climbs back up the ravine. Come to find out, his dog's inside the home, like sleeping inside his daughter's bed, on his daughter's bed. But they had mimicked his dog whimpering, and it caused him to go out and try and find his dog. So I don't know if it's more of a parrot mimicking. I don't know if it's more of a tactic to get you to come out. It's very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard a good bit of that, and actually, my wife, she took our dog out for a walk How the dog wakes up every morning before sunrise and just, is dying to go out. So, thankfully she took it out. But they walked out, the back door of the house. We're headed just to the road. And, said that, she heard these just two god awful screams, from the top of that ridge, in the woods right behind the house. It said that she had heard them back to back. And, she the dog heard it too, and it, freaked both of them out. This was, right at first light. And so I played a bunch of, animal calls for like wildlife around there, like, bobcats and coyotes and, owl screeches and all that stuff. And she just said that, no, that wasn't it. That, she had never heard anything like it. So there are all kinds of things.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can get them to back off from the house. One of the things I know you and I talked about the other day was putting those game cams up right next to the home. And everyone, it's not necessarily that they're afraid of, I don't think, the camera. It's kind of like what I was telling you the other day. I went out with my camera, which is a night vision camera, and we saw this light shooting through the forest. And I was telling Woody, I was like, what is that light? And it looked just like a beam of light shooting through the forest. And I was like, what the heck is that? And then you take the night vision down and it was gone. You wouldn't see it with the naked eye. You put the night vision back up and you'd see it. It was a game cam. I don't know what kind of a game cam. I think it was a plot watcher, but you could see it through the night vision. And so if they see in the spectrum, I don't know if that freaks them out. I know the guys at the Siege of Fanabia, they talked about putting game cams right underneath every window, and that generally got them to back off from the house. Now you have this whole place lit up, and you mentioned there was two places where the bulbs are out. On the areas that you have lit up, are you having activity on that side of the house?
Yes. When the bulbs were out that night, the next morning I replaced them, after, that sucker showed up in the window. But yeah, all four corners of the house have, and even on the sides, we have massive floodlights. So, the place is lit up like a Christmas tree. As far as the, surrounding, area, the yard and everything like that, and even the driveway. So yeah, it's totally lit up, and I initially hoped that would at least, give us a buffer, between there and the woods, that these things would stay away, but, that has not been the case. So I'm kind of looking for, alternative means to keep them away. I'm going to, try the game cam on the house like you're talking about. The, setting up the car alarm and things like that, because, I want to explore all alternatives until it comes down to, shoot them up.
Hopefully it doesn't get to the point where you got to light them up, with the rifle and everything. And, and it's the same story over and over and over again. It's kind of like the Siege of Fanabia. Those guys just got so burnt out on being terrorized night after night after night, and this wasn't a vacation home. This was their home. They were in it 24/7. They ended up just lighting one of these things up and being done with it. What they thought when they thought they were done with it, but they really weren't. It got 100 times worse. And sometimes the lights work. Sometimes the lights don't work. I've had witnesses say where they lit their yard up and then their house gets slapped in the middle of the night. I remember a lady went out to her window, looked out the window, and there it is, just standing right in front of the light, all lit up, just looking at the house. And so sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't work. I would try the game cam. I'd put those game cams all around the home. And for some reason, I don't know if it bugs them or what they don't like about the cheaper the game cam, the better, because they got the infrared beam that goes out. Yeah,
that's what I have. It's a little cheap stick-up cam from, Walmart Academy, something like that. So it's definitely got the infrared beam.
It's terrifying though, man. I can imagine. Even being a vacation home, God, you go there to relax, you go there and then you got to deal with this,
Absolutely. I totally get it too. What you're saying about those, those other guys who just, got tired of it. They had it. I was kind of hoping things had maybe calmed down a little bit, up until just a few weeks ago, when my folks were there, the house got slapped again, and it was, all the floodlights were on and everything. So just kind of, take it as it comes, and, hopefully, before too long we can, find some resolution or, some kind of middle ground. The only other thing I've thought about doing, and I'll get your opinion on this, is all the stick structures and things like that. That I believe it was Bob Garrett who talked about, tearing theirs down and building your own. Have you heard about anybody doing that, or what that resulted in?
I haven't. In that situation, you could tear them down. I don't know that I'd build your own, but you could tear them down. Some of those different stick structures, it really depends on what it is. I've been told through different sources, if it's a teepee structure and it has a stick going right through the top, like weaved right through the top, don't cross it, don't go into that area, stay away from that area. I think mainly, and I could be wrong, this is my own theory, I think a lot of those stick structures and a lot of that knocking trees over and creating, I think it's almost like blinds. Like you'd see a hunter, sit behind a blind and wait to ambush, because these things are ambush predators. So they'll sit behind them, wait to ambush. You spend less calories, you have less chances of getting hurt, you got the element of surprise. Just like a hunter, just like any other predator, I kind of think that's what they use them for. Again, I could be wrong, but I kind of think that's what they use them for. And yeah, I mean, I would go out and knock them down during the day. I'd knock every single one of them down during the day to let them know that this is your territory, not theirs. I wanted to ask you, how is the ground out there? Are you able to find tracks, or is it pretty hard ground out there?
It's pretty hard. It's at least in our yard's a pretty hard sandy bottom. In the surrounding area, there's so much foliage, fallen leaves and sticks, and along the the bottom in the woods, there's barring the lake bed, there's not really a whole lot of good areas where you could find tracks. There are a few kind of muddy areas in our yard, but they're kind of more towards the the shoreline of the lake. Now I have found some impressions around the side of the house. We have a big kind of pine straw layer in between the side of the house and the yard, and I have found some massive impressions. When there's been activity up at the house the next day, but it's nothing that I could, cast, or even I try to take pictures of it, and it just, didn't do it justice. But I put my foot in them, and I sunk down 3 or 4 inches, where something heavy had been there. But other than that, no, I've not been able to find any tracks thus far, which drives me crazy. But just the nature of the the ground in the area, it just is what it is. I'm just hoping to keep looking and get lucky one day.
Yeah, I'd be careful too when your sister comes out. I'd tell her no more long walks. I'd keep an eye on that dog. I don't want to let anyone get too far away from the cabin home. What worries me is, they're trying to get into the neighbor's, well, it's not even your neighbor, it's an abandoned home next door. They're popping up in the door, and, if they're doing that next door, you can probably expect that type of behavior next, of them turning the doorknobs, trying to get in. I'd probably get those game cams up as quickly as you can. Just get them around the home. And again, the cheaper the better. Buy the ones with the infrared beam. I'd put them all around your home. And I'd be kind of curious. You'll have to let me know if that works in that situation, if that gets them to back off. The only other time I've heard that works is with the guys at the Siege. He said that did get them to back off. They did back off of the home. Yeah,
like I said, I'm going down there Friday, so I have my game cams right here, so I'll be, absolutely throwing those on the house this weekend. Just, anything we can do to keep these things at bay, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and keep me up to date, will you? Let me know what happens after this weekend. I'd be real curious. You have my cell phone number. Give me a call and let me know what happens.
Absolutely.
It's a terrifying situation. My heart goes out to you because it's one of those things to where it's a different type of situation when you're out hunting and you come across one, or you're driving down the road and one jumps in front of you. When you're, I realize it's a vacation home, but when you're in your home, that's the last thing you really want to deal with. At first it's kind of fun.
It's not fun at all.
Yeah, at first it's kind of fun, exciting, new, and then after a while it gets old really quick.
Oh, you got that right. It was, interesting in the beginning. Terrifying at the same time. And, after time goes on, you just, how you get tired of it. And, there's been hopes that, things would subside, that maybe these things would move on or, just leave us alone. But, anytime I thought that, we were to that point, something else happened. So, it definitely gets old, especially when it's, at your door, not, like you said, not just crossing the road or anything like that. It's a totally different ball game.
Yeah, especially when you got to lay in bed with a gun across your lap, hoping for the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that didn't hit a lot of people listening, but God, that's terrifying, man. To sit there and you're.
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. It really does suck.
Yeah, I slept fully clothed a time or two initially after everything began, just because pop out of bed in my skivvies and run through with a rifle. It sucks. It really does.
Yeah, and what sucks even worse is you're dealing with something that the general public thinks doesn't exist, or some myth, or
right.
And it's like, well, come live a couple days in my shoes out here, and you'll find out really quick it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You got that right.
Well, Andrew, I sure appreciate all your time. I appreciate all of the encounter stories. I wish you the best. I hope the trail cam thing works. Let me know if it does. Be careful with the firecrackers. I mean, you're it's your home. You can do whatever you want. Be careful with the firecrackers because these things, it's different from a normal wild animal. It might scare them off, but it might piss them off, too, in the same breath.
Right.
And if they get pissed off, they might come back to make you pay. You know what I mean? I hate saying that. But.
Right. Or somebody else in my family pay for something that I do, or vice versa.
Yeah, in a situation like that, my advice to people, too, is don't pull the trigger unless it's your last resort, especially when they're around your home. I always, you always hear me say on the show, and I take a lot of heat for it, one should be shot and brought in. My only exception to that rule is when they're around your home. I think that should be the last resort, because the moment you pull that trigger, the moment you take one down, expect never to go back to that home again. Expect to sell it. Expect to get rid of it really quick.
Yeah, so you cross the line of demarcation. It'd be, I can't imagine. But man, I do thank you for everything. I appreciate you talking to me and having me on. I appreciate your show. The guests you've had, it's been a huge help for me ever since all this started. Was just listening to your show and the researchers and other guests you've had talk about their encounters. Just because I was starting with a base of zero knowledge, but all this stuff going on. So it's just been a huge help, and I greatly appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. I'll see you guys back on Sunday. Have a great night, everyone.